don't know what the big questions in philosophy are, but I know that for me now, the idea that values, the fact-value dichotomy, since I would say since 1976, really, the idea that the fact-value dichotomy is the really dangerous legacy of logical positivism.
Well, my take on that, and it can only be my take as it's related to medicine, is that logical positivism, the way it's negative in medicine, is when, say, for example, you have statistical data of diseases and you have a patient in front of you, and there can be an over-reliance on data and over-reliance on assumptions from the theory. So when you have real life in front of you, you tend to maybe ignore it on the basis of anecdotal evidence is not as important as theoretical evidence, which that's a very dangerous line to start taking and start judging.
A case where the problem with just giving up on philosophy is bad philosophy is omnipresent. You know, if we gave up talking, we professional philosophers gave up talking about philosophy, your novelists wouldn't, your physicists wouldn't, your biologists wouldn't, your self-promoted God knows what wouldn't. And we would be deluged in nonsense. We will be deluged in nonsense, but at least there have to be some still small voices, like the boy saying the emperor has no clothes, saying that's nonsense.
Oh, I think this is true for medicine. You can't just give up on philosophy in medicine. It needs to be more of it, especially now, because science has dominated medicine for the last century, and now it is very much a global world. The culture's emerging, and to say that science is only, medicine is only anatomical based, and it's only science based, and doctors travel around the world, physicians only think about the material world, and they go to different cultures, but there hasn't been as much thought into all what that means on a cultural level. Really, we are more than just the sum of the parts, and I think that's where philosophy of medicine can really help, and a lot more too, a lot of other areas too.
The idea that there can be responsible inquiry into value questions, but without being a reversion to fundamentalism or reversion to a priori philosophy.
That is one of my favorite lines in the whole video, and that is because as a patient, patients are the subjective, they are the value. They can't see their disease externally completely. They will always have some subjective element, and that's why natural medicine is so popular now, because they always attempt to respect the patient's value type of ideas, not just data. And that's why it's one of my favorite lines in the video.
And I think that philosophy is only healthy when it simultaneously investigates questions of pure intellectual interest, or that seem, at least at the time, to have only a purely intellectual interest, and questions which obviously have immense practical importance at a particular time. That was what Plato did, that's what Aristotle did, that's what Kant did, that's what Dewey did. And that is my model. We needn't be ashamed of investigating a question which has no practical importance, like the foundations of set theory or the foundations of quantum mechanics, but we can't only be doing that.
What I get out of that is that if there were more philosophers in workplaces and in medicine particularly, there's going to be more of a practical use for it. Instead, they shut it out more and more. Less funding goes into university for philosophies. And I think, I guess what Hilary's saying is that there is a practical use, And we will be deluded in nonsense unless if we can bring it back and start using it the way that was really what it was meant to be used for. And so the more that, say, in Western society they mock philosophers saying it's a useless subject, and then they shut it out and don't fund it at universities, I guess the more that reminds me of in the 11th century, or near the end of the 12th century, in the Islamic Golden Age, that the caliphs at the time were entirely against what they interpreted as philosophy, and they thought was provocative to the Islamic system, or even evil. It was anti-God. And in a way, it's almost similar now. They're saying it's anti the establishment of what we call life at the moment. And we don't want to do that. We want to be more free. We don't want to be under any oppression.